the 999 show after church chat, and I was going to talk about transpersonal experiences a little bit. And welcome, Ange, and welcome, Cosmic Orphan. Welcome. So, transpersonal experiences. Now, there's a book here. This is a book that I got a long time ago. I I bought it at a gift shop at a Trappist monastery outside of Lafayette, Oregon. So I don't know how many Trappist monasteries there are in the state, but there's a few. There's only one. I mean, in the country, but there's a few, like maybe a dozen maximum. Hi, and so this one was one of those pivotal books that came across myself when I was like studying, doing academic study of religion, as to try to kind of being able to classify myself. So I've had a lot of like what would call spiritual experiences when I was growing up, and so and so forth. But a transpersonal experience, it's more of a psychology term. It's more of a psychological term, and so you could really say an esoteric experience, a mystic experience, a transpersonal experience. Those are roughly the same things. And so, in a transpersonal experience, one state of consciousness goes beyond the self into a sense of like oneness with the world outside of oneself, and that's the way I understand it. I mean, I could be completely wrong there, but if I go back into my history, there were like 2, 3 of those experiences that I had such an experience, and I think maybe the first one happened when I was 3 years old, but I don't really remember too much about it. I just remember being in the backyard of the Portland house that I was born in. It was on northeast Portland, kind of on the edge of between Portland and Gresham. Not that I've been to the house a few times since I've grown up. I kind of know where it's at, and I kind of don't. I don't think I could find it on my own. I know the approximate location of where, but without like a relative to guide the path or to give me the address, I don't know where it's at. And hello, and so I remember being in the backyard, and there was a red gate, but everything was shimmering and shimmering. Okay, your emojis are hosed up. Okay, so everything was like shimmering and in this sort of a silvery shimmering thing, and it was a sense that there was something beyond. But I think when I'm 3 years old, I don't think I remember this experience happening, but I do think I remember it. And when I look back in time, I remembered that something happened, and everything was sort of a shimmering kind of a thing. That was the first one, and I don't know if I got a sense those things, if it was a real transpersonal experience where I had a sense of oneness afterwards. I really don't know, because I was just 3. But the first time that I remember having that was when I was 17. And when I was 17, on my lunch break at school, I would drive to a mill. Hello, Timmy. Welcome. And blessings, Fatima, and blessings. And so I would drive to this. It used to be a plywood mill, and it was a big Um, and okay, I let me see. Is that a troll? And anyways, the I would drive to this. It was an old, old plywood mill, and so like it when that plywood mill shut down, it was like probably like 1980. Around that time is when um, the plywood mill shut down. But I would go there, and that's this time I would go there and I'd smoke cigarettes and drink a big 16-ounce bottle of Coca-Cola and have my sandwiches and so forth. And so I remember this happened just in a split second, but in a split second I was transported out of my body and I was in this void. And in this void, then I saw a light, and it just burst forth into millions of billions and billions of particles. And maybe they were stars, maybe they were galaxies, maybe they were other universes that were bursting forth into the realm. But then one of them came up really close. Oh, that's me. I'm that blob, silvery blob of light. That's me. And so these other lights, well, those are other people and so forth. And that was the experience I had when I was 17. And then I was back in my body and I had a cigarette. I was smoking Marlboro Reds at that time, and I had a bottle of Coke in my hand, and there it was. It all happened within the span of a breath. And this was a transpersonal experience. And then afterwards, there was like this phone line, an open phone line. Okay, I guess my internet shut down for a second. Anyway, so I had I was transported out, and then I came back in, and I was transported out into another realm. I was shown a piece of knowledge, and then I was transported back in. But and then after the fact, I had this phone line of knowledge. It was like I knew. So I'm sorry about that. It seems like the Wi-Fi zone is collapsing. I think I'm back now. And so, anyways, that when was talking about, no, I wasn't having an out of body experience there. I was having a, oh, is the internet gonna come back? Is this the deep state? Is it the deep state? And there it is. It buffered again. I'm sorry about that. I have no control over what's going on. And so yeah, so for about 6 months, I had a this, and so that the phone line, like the phone line and of knowledge. And I've had that experience several times in throughout my life. Usually, mostly between the time I was a teenager and the last time I think I had that, I might have been in my early 40s or so forth, but I'm not really positive about that. And then we go forward to my Israel experience, and that was in 1995. And that experience had a lot of these peak experiences that occur. So yeah, this is not a good internet day. It should be. Everything was stable. Anyways, so the Israel experience in 1995, and so between the time that I was like 26 and 27, there was a lot. And then there was the one the one that was like this true, more like a true transpersonal experience, just like the one that was at 17 where I was transported out and back in. But this was different. It was and this was before I started uh, going through the rite of Christian initiation for adults, and I they were going through the Eucharistic prayers and everything, and then during that time, I felt something tugging on me. I felt something this tug, and I said, oh, I was just holding on really strong to hold on into here, but I couldn't hold on, and then whatever it was, it me out, pulled me out. And so there I was watching the mass unfold. I could hear everything, and I could see that I was down there, kneeling down and going through the motions and doing the prayers. But at the same time, so in I was sort of bilocated. So that's kind of what it would be like, a bilocation experience. I was in two places at the same time. I was in there and then I was out there. But when I was out there, it was in this place of just bliss and of peace and calm and and a sense of being loved. And so that's was kind of my transpersonal experiences. But with each of these things that happened, there was a lot of knowledge that was imparted. So that was like an astral projection. Yeah. So I was like thinking of yeah. So maybe that's what it was, a spontaneous astral projection, and because I was like thinking about those kinds of things, and and those are the kinds of things that kind of shaped my experience. And if I like look at this book, this is just a collection of essays that was written by some German monk. I think he was probably a Trappist monk. But this book was in my looking at religion and the understanding of religion. It kind of was very pivotal thing because it talks about the relationship between the exoteric and esoteric, and where exo is outer and eso is inner. And so oftentimes when we think of esotericism, you think in terms of like the secret societies. You think in terms of the Rosicrucians or the Golden Dawn or these other groups. But there is in the theory of it, you would think of it as there's a more basic form of that, and there's this, and so we kind of swing in between these different realms of the esoteric and the exoteric. And so here the transpersonal experience, or the esoteric experience that a person has translated into Islam, into Christianity, into Judaism, into Buddhism, into Hinduism. And so there is this sort of welcome, Anna. And so there's this sort of a, so that all of the Earth's religions resulted from a transpersonal experience from someone. And that's just this one theory. Of course, you could also look at, there's the other theory of the ancient alien theory, and we're not really going there. And I enjoy the studying the ancient alien theory as well. But I kind of like this in that we have this sense that all of the world religions stem from the same source. And so they're and so, but what happens, I think, is because not everybody has these experiences. It's not to say that you can't. I think that everybody can. Now I was like was curious because I had my head under a big giant magnet a couple months ago while they were taking a look at my head, and I was thinking, oh, am I going to have a mystical experience after this? And the guy says, no, probably not, but maybe. I kind of think of like this as what that Eucharistic experience. All right. This is what I kind of think in what that Eucharistic experience I had with the OBE transpersonal experience that coincided with it all. And so Yeah, the Toth. Yeah, that was this one. This is what that that Ace of Cups. That is what I kind of see it as, this massive amount of power that came forth from that cup, the cup of the and the knowledge that I had from that is that it is a union, yeah, it is a union experience, and I see that as a I see that's how I kind of see it, as it was a union experience. And and when I was like watching it, it was like that was what was from the backside, that was what was going on, is that everybody had that potential to have that union experience during that Eucharistic celebration. And so that's kind of what, um, yeah, well, this was long before all that stuff was legal. But, that this was. That was the opportunity, the opportunity, and so that was really kind of what hooked me for thinking that I should become a Catholic. Yes, exactly. And but that knowledge of that things do express themselves in different forms. And and I was like other things that I thought about through time is that all these different forms of um how we experience it, and how it is experienced it, and how we've quantified it, and quantified it into the different sort of paths. I kind of like see that as like all, yeah, yeah. I was born as a Lutheran. I was born into the Lutheran Church, and I was baptized as a Lutheran at age 9 and confirmed, and yeah. And so like you have this, yeah. So we have all these different paths, but I almost kind of think that those, all the little minutia and the details of that stuff is all just entertainment. That's one of the thoughts that I have had from this. And but you have that basic experience, and you have that Christ consciousness, and that Christ consciousness reflected throughout the whole body. And in that there's a rebirth. Maybe, yeah. They were all naked before. Well, I had that dream, and so that's kind of what and but I also kind of gathered that um, what I got out of that, and this is just me, of course. What I got out of that was that that experience is for all of us. Now, of course, the Jesus individual is a unique incarnation, a unique person. It was a unique individual, but that experience was for everyone. And I kind of actually got that from also with other studies of looking into the Pauline letters. And so yeah, you went through all of that, yeah. In your grandma, I didn't have any Catholics in my family at all. And I have what I have in my family is I had, going back, I had Puritans. And so yeah, the Catholics that I had in my family went back to the Reformation. And so my lineage there being, so my roots in the United States go back to the Mayflower, so 400 years. Hello, Mr. Welcome, welcome. So it goes back 400 years in this country, and I have and then that was like England. Those were the English ones, and so in the 1600s, the separatists. I think they were Anabaptists of some kind. The Puritans, they were Anabaptists, and they go into Denmark, and then and they go from Denmark, and they go across the sea, and they land in Plymouth, what was called Plymouth Rock, which I've never been there. And I probably never will go to the East Coast, but nevertheless, I don't like airplanes, so unless I go on a train, I ain't gonna be visiting Plymouth Rock in my lifetime. But anyways, and so my own personal religious roots are, and then I have a relative who was a Jew, and they were forced to convert. Either they, because of the whole during the Crusades of. Yeah, I did the DNA, but I have testimony. I have family testimony, and then I also have like my one of my first cousins and her husband are really big. Yeah, they're really big into all that genealogical research, and so that's on my mother's side, and then her father, my mom's father, confessed on his deathbed that he was of Jewish descent. You know, and so there's that in there. So when I went to Israel, I experienced the ground. I experienced. It just place felt like home in Jerusalem. There was this home kind of a feel. So I was experiencing these genetic memories in there, in my genes, that home experience, and I've had that home experience. I am actually, I am in the United States. That's where I'm physically from. My roots in the United States go back 400 years, and so I had people. They came over on a sailboat in the 1600s. They came over they landed in Massachusetts, and then they they settled. They eventually settled in Ohio, in which in 1800 there was they bought a house in Ohio, and that family line is interesting because they were all these educated women, and so in that family that DNA family line there is an auntie, great auntie. I think she was probably born in the 1840s or 1850s, who was a missionary over in China, and started a women's college in China, which still exists today. And then, so you came from Ohio to Chicago, yeah, yeah. So then and then they went from Ohio, and then they came over to Oregon. So the relatives came over to Oregon to go to go to Pacific University in Forest Grove, which is a religious college. And so one of the individuals had a pastor's job or some kind of there was a job at that school that they came out to Oregon for, and they came on the southern route. So they took a train from Ohio to Sacramento, and then from Sacramento they came on a covered wagon and came on up to Oregon City, and then from there there was a settling of Oregon. So, and I have in my possession a the diary of how much they spent to get to Oregon. And so those are my first Oregon roots. And then there was a later wave that came in. This was the late 1800 people, and so and then the later wave came with my grandmother, and just after the Spanish flu, and they came out to Oregon. And then so that was my grandmother. Hold on a second here. I'll just show you a picture. This here is my grandmother, who was born in Ohio and traveled to Oregon. So one of her aunties was and relatives came over onto the Oregon Trail. They came on the Oregon Trail, and this is my Jewish German grandfather, and his dad came I think in the 1880s or 1890s. And so the story, and he married an Aryan woman in Germany, or not him. His dad married an Aryan woman, and he was born in like 1906, I think, and she was born in like 1905 they were born roughly around the same time, just right after in the early aughts in the 1900s, and then and so he was, I think, lived in the Pacific Northwest. Yes, it's a black and white photo. That's all we have. All I have is a black and white photo. And he was born, I think, in the Pacific Northwest. But his daddy died. Not his dad. His mama died when he was like 6 years old, or so. And anyways, and I think this is my mother here, but it may be their firstborn. And my grandfather was a surveyor, but then the spiritual side, the psychic side, came from my great grandmother, my father's grandmother, and that's where and so there's in the Swedish roots my last name, the male side, they were kind of like gypsy peoples, and they were imported into Sweden in the 12th century by the king of Sweden to build the war machine. And so my father's people were all blacksmiths going back to the 12th century and beyond and before. And they were pulled into Sweden and given land and position in society, but no ability to have titles to go be part of the throne. In the throne. And so and so then this is my family history. And so this is where these people were the ones that had so like my great grandmother I mentioned was a tarot reader, and so she was I was so my great grandmother was a tarot reader, but it was more like a party thing. And that's what my understanding, what my aunt had told me, is that they would, and I mentioned this before, they would have these in Portland, they would have these drunken parties, and then they would while the boys were playing horseshoes or doing stupid things that drunk boys did. They were probably all men between like 20 and like 30 something. I think, and it was like, yeah, they were these were in their 20s, and then the women would retire into the kitchen, and then they say, oh yeah, read our fortunes, read our fortunes, and then my grandma would pull out her tarot cards or whatever they were. They were probably, maybe they were Rider Waite cards, but maybe they were Marseille tarot. I don't really know. And then she would just do fortunes for everybody around. And so I think it was more like a party game that they were playing. And so that's kind of and that was something that I learned almost 2 years ago. I learned almost 2 years ago when I was sick with COVID. But so anyway, I was talking about these transpersonal experiences, and so they in a concentration camp. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. And anyways, and so my journey to tarot from came from that piece of knowledge, and knowing that it actually gave me permission. It gave me permission that I could that I could be a esoteric I could be a esoteric follower of Christianity, and I could dive into tarot. And so, but so anyway, that's kind of a little bit of. But when I was talking about things that I've had experienced in the land, and I kind of want to talk a little bit about that, this how through our intentions that you can manifest this energy, and I noticed that because I don't really think that Israel is I don't really think there is such a thing as a holy land or anything like that. But I do think that there is a energy that if you give something energy and you keep doing it for years and years and years, it kind of becomes that. And so, like the monastery where I bought this book from, it was a monastery that I used to go all the time. I went there. When I lived in McMinnville, I was just a few months, 15 minutes away drive, I think, maybe 20-minute way drive, because it was back roads and country and so forth. And so this place was an amazing place. So so I would, you'd go down there and you'd feel the chaos of the world, and you feel the chaos of the world. But then I would drive onto the driveway of the Trappist monastery, and it would be like I was driving into a different world. So I could tested this. I would go when I go there for retreats, I go take a walk, and I go walk clear down to the highway. I step off of the monastery grounds right onto the highway, and immediately I was filled with chaos. The chaos of everything that was going on in the world. And then if I just step back onto the grounds, the ground onto the driveway of the monastery, all that chaos and all that violence and all that anger would just vanish. And so I would go there just to get away and have a would have just to have a retreat from the world. And from that experience, I gathered that, I bet these kind of spots are all over the place, and that this place became that, I'm guessing, because of those monks that were 5 times a day praying. And then they also had one of their prayers, like after dinner, they would have a sit, a contemplated prayer sit, and you could go into there and you could join them and sit in the quiet and just breathe and be. And so that's kind of what I was wanting to talk about a little bit. That the other things, maybe I'll go into more depth on why I believe. Well, when I came to believe that this whole second coming thing was a continual thing, but that's like a different topic altogether. And the continual thing, if I go talk about my heretical Christianity, that's the best way to call it. Because, throughout times, people who had knowledge like I have, or had those experiences, oftentimes they end up getting killed by the church. They kill those people, they burn them at the stake. And so anybody who would come out and say that all the religions stem from the same place, and that, it's that sense that where we're, in the Old Testament, you might say there's I think it was Jeremiah or is Isaiah who talked about the law being written on your heart. And it was and then that before we're born, that word, that law is written here, but that law that was written on our heart was the law, or the logos, the word, that it was the source, was written on our hearts. And I think that's how you could interpret that, or how I would interpret that. This one love is written there, but it wasn't what was written in all the pages of those books, but it was that all you needed was to go in here, and you didn't necessarily need a temple, you didn't need a priest, you didn't need these rites and rituals, you don't necessarily need those things in order to have a connection to the divine. And so as I had that Eucharistic experience, it was not necessary to have all of the trappings, or the dogmas and the doctrines, that everything that we put around it was not really all that necessary, and that you don't necessarily need that. And I think that's also like what the teachings of the secret societies, or I really don't know too much about the Rosicrucians, but I would kind of like to learn a little bit more about that. Anyways, that's all I got. I hope this was valuable to you. I think maybe we'll do this again next week. I don't know what I'll talk about in my after church chat on the 999 show. And then maybe I'll pull out my Gospel of Thomas and look into that. And I probably will spend a fair amount of time going through this book, or pieces of it, not the whole thing. I haven't really read the whole book, but I've read the stuff in it that I find valuable. And so, yeah. So, like, here's something I wrote, because I wrote a lot of notes in here. And this is something I wrote in the, so, all right, thank you. Yeah. So this is my response to the exoteric Christians, and those who are the Calvinists who look at predestination. And so this is something I wrote in response to them, and I wrote it in the leaves of this book. I have a lot of notes in here, and so God conceived you before you were born. God so loved you that he destined you to hell. God saw the instant of your creation that you would have a mind of your own, that you would reflect God's own mind, and you would love people but not worship the Bible or Jesus. And at the end of it all, God made you anyway and destined you to hell. And so that is my response to how I responded to the and more the exoteric, probably more of the evangelical of those predestination pieces. Because I try to be open to everybody, but I have anyways. I do have some issues with. I am just a lowly person, and I do have some issues with certain paths. And fundamentalism is one of the paths I have trouble with. But nevertheless, I don't think I was going to go there, but I did. I kind of left this on a bummer note rather than a good note. But then, we do have this. We have that union that comes from drinking from the cup, and the cup of union, and bringing into you that blood with the blood of a God, and bringing within you the essence of a God, and drinking that into you, and letting that essence of a God, or the essence of source, giving you strength for the day. Anyway, that's how I see the Eucharist. Thank you very much. I've been on for 45 minutes, and you're welcome. I forgot to bring. So on this is some of my other icons. I think this is Peter. I know this is the Holy Spirit, and this is some other one. So my pathway to tarot does indeed come from Catholicism, and I do have this one here, which is the I remember I went to this church when I was in Israel, and this is I think it was the Dormition of Mary. It's the place celebrated where Mary passed away. And then so you have Mary's body here, and then Jesus coming down, and then here's Mary again. And so it's kind of like a you're looking at, it's like the reversal of this one. And you have the Madonna, and you have the Mary holding the Jesus, but the baby Jesus is not a baby. And you know what's kind of interesting about this image is, and I brought this out a little bit last week, was this Mother Mary Oracle, and how the art of this oracle is very much like this. And so, and I'll just kind of just pull one of those out that kind of struck me. And the cards are kind of sticky, so I guess I'm going to have to work on to unstick the cards. Yes, like this one here. It is the same style of art that exists in that. So you have the mother, and then the child. But if you look at the face of the child, you see the face of the child is a reflection, a smaller version of that of the mother, and it is not a child. It is not a So you have a great photo. Yeah. That actually wasn't a great Gram's photo. That was a grandmother. That was my grandmother. That was my mother's mother, my grandmother. Because because I'm getting close to 60. But anyways, in this oracle, and this oracle, this is a theme that's repeated throughout this oracle deck, is that the child is not really a child. It's just a small version of the adult. And whereas in, oh, I see, and the religion photos, and then you have in this one, you have the child, which is not a child. The child is the small version of the adult. And that's kind of fascinating, because it's that is all already mature. And then if you want to go extrapolate with that, the law on, and that if you have the law on your heart, that law on your heart is it's fully developed. And all you have to, but maybe it's small like a child, but it's not childlike. And so that all you really need is to go inside to figure out how it is that you need to live in this world. And so anyways, that's, I think, all I have. But there's enough here that we can talk, I can talk more about that. Okay, all right, so I gotta put things back. We'll have to look at this. Okay, you mean the religious photos, yeah. Yeah, and your brother wanted to toss those. And then I have my my St. Francis of Assisi's prayer card too. Where I'll read over this and I'll just finish that with that. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. O divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is giving that we receive, it is in pardoning that we are pardoned, and it is dying that we are born to eternal life. And so, if anyone there that's still here would like, what would you like me to maybe reflect on and come back to you with for the next week? If there's like anything from the story that I told or anything like that, and I would be willing to reflect on that and come back with you next week at the same time. 1221 is a angel number, and so that's the time that I will schedule the live for. It may not come on exactly at that time because my grandmother wasn't very good with time, and I'm sometimes not very good with time. So if you have something, and I think I have talked a little bit about some of these things in my long play videos from when I first started this channel. And so if you want to go back and look at some of those, that would be good. I mean, the second coming perspective, I will go over the second coming perspective, including I will do that. My second coming perspective. Yes. And maybe I might also go over a perspective on why I think that apocalyptic literature is that we don't need it at all. Of course, that was a lot of church fathers thought that, including Martin Luther. He also thought that it was counterproductive to have things, and for people to get hung up on that. So I will talk next week about my my perspective on the second coming as it was taught to me through those transpersonal experiences that I've had through my life. And so that's what I got for today. And I wanted to thank everybody. Thank Cosmic Orphan. Thank Anna. Thank Ange. Thank Fatima. And am I missing anybody else? If I go back, thank Mr. Tahir. Butchered his name. Mom, with your inability to Tahir. Oh shoot! I hate not being able to pronounce people's names. Okay, Tahir, thank you. Thank you for being here. Klano, thank you. Thank you for being here. And everyone else, thank you for being here. And yeah, thank you. And I will be back another time. I probably am going to do another live this evening because this was my Christmas present from my mom. And it is a basic watercolor paint set. And I want to go in and open it up for all of you guys and do my first run ever with actual real watercolor paints. And so I'm going to probably do that later this evening. I probably better do it before dinner because once dinner happens, it's just and then after dinner we'll be watching Coach and some comedy and hanging out with Mom, and then it'll be like midnight. Anyways, that's what I got, and I'll be back on Tuesday. And Tuesday I'm going to be working on my my Oracle deck some more, and I think I'm going to cut a whole bunch of new cards, and we'll start with, I don't know. I'll do something. Maybe Cosmic Orphan, do you want to be a guest on my show sometime? And did you watch that episode that I did last Friday with Ange, with Roots and Waves, where she was sort of talking about a card and then we'd be going through for the first wave of guests, going through this tarot coloring book, and we would be, so like with Ange, it was the moon card. Let's go just take a look at that again. And why is it not finding it fast enough? And we can take a look at what that looked like. I just passed right over it. Devil. There we go. I got it. So this was Ange directing me to do the coloring of the moon card. Okay, that's the moon card you keep seeing. And yeah. And so that is how Ange directed me, for the most part, to paint. So Cosmic, you can go, if you want to also, and if anyone wants to come on and be a guest and direct me. I'm generally doing my Friday spots at 9, but I know that some people can't do it at that time because it's way too late in the evening. And so, so that would be, I have my email address, and it's in my, let's see, let me just write it down really quick. I have a lot of paper around me, but okay. My handwriting is terrible. I am trying here. Oh, there are these buttons here, the buttons, I'll write the email address down here. And so THE.999 dot, no dot there, show. So anybody who would like to come on and be a guest, you can email me at THE period 999 and that's it. And so hopefully somebody will want to be a guest on Friday night at 9 or 8, 9 o'clock, 8:30. 8 is really hard for me. I tried coming on early, but it's really difficult because I barely get done with dinner by 8 o'clock. And anyways, Anna, thank you. And so anybody who wants to be a guest and help color a tarot card, please email me and I will get back to you and we can figure out a date and a time, and hopefully it'll be on my Friday thing. And that's it for today. Bye-bye.